Hello again, YouTubers, Ultimate SpongeBob 101 back here again on the SpongeBob channel with our episode review video for SpongeBob episode 62, The Lost Mattress, and Krabs vs. Plankton. This hypnosis states, Plankton slips and falls on some water at a Krusty Krab and sues Mr. Krabs for not posting a wet floor sign. Also, SpongeBob buys Mr. Krabs a new mattress to help him sleep better. Let's dive right in. When I think about both of these episodes, I think of the idea of intentions. In The Lost Mattress, this manifests in the kind-heartedness of SpongeBob to allow Mr. Krabs to get a good night's sleep and at the same time to avoid opening the Krusty Krab late. On the other hand, we have Squidward, who is usually nonchalant about things and is relatively self-centered, suddenly coming up to seize credit for a good deed on behalf of SpongeBob and Patrick. So much so that he is entirely self-righteous when dumping Krabs' mattress. And so if there's one thing to take away from this episode, aside from having good intentions, it's to never throw away others' possessions without asking. The episode begins with Krabs showing up late and is really cranky because he once again had a really bad night's sleep in his old lumpy mattress. When SpongeBob proposes that he and Squidward should get Krabs a new one, Squidward shoots that down by saying that there is no reason to do that for a boss that is clearly more wealthy and capable in solving that problem himself. Krabs chooses not to solve the problem because we all know how cheapskate he is. But SpongeBob and Patrick take it upon themselves to procure a new mattress for Krabs regardless. And some scenes, like Patrick saying that there are 10 mattresses in a store with at least thousands of them, was pretty funny, along with all the scenes of trying out various mattresses. Subsequently, Squidward, not wanting to be seen as a lousy employee, pens his name down as the sole person responsible for replacing the mattress. And I gotta give credit to Patrick here for standing up and saying that Squidward didn't even contribute a single cent, so he has really no right to do so. And nonetheless, this comes to bite Squidward in the butt. Later, figuratively and literally, it is revealed that Krabs stores all his money in his mattress, the same one that Squidward had taken the liberty of dumping at the dump. Krabs then goes into a cash coma, and it is up to the three of them to retrieve the mattress. Failure to do so would result in the prosecution of Squidward. Meanwhile, realizing that Krabs has no health insurance, the nurse in the hospital moves Krabs out of the ward and eventually kicks him down the hill from the hospital. This is really crazy stuff, as there should be more safeguards, honestly, to investigate Krabs' assets, for example, especially since Squidward noted how wealthy Krabs was earlier in the episode. So nonetheless, we go over to the dump where there are 3 attempts made to secure the mattress. The first one involving SpongeBob and Patrick just sneaking in and seizing the mattress, but they get distracted by the quote-unquote beautiful scenery. And the gate flips over, causing Squidward to be trapped inside instead and getting mauled by the worm. So it's so silly. Then SpongeBob and Patrick are to make a lot of noise to lure the worm away from the mattress so that Squidward could secure the mattress. But instead, SpongeBob and Patrick decide to play fetch with the worm using a wooden spoon, which Squidward then collects. Why Squidward would want to keep a wooden spoon from the dump is beyond me. But because of that, he gets mauled again. The final attempt involves Mr. Krabs showing up and scaring the worm away, but not before the worm lands on Squidward and mauls him once again. Usually, I think Squidward is not deserving of the physical and mental harm he gets, but in this episode, he absolutely deserves it. The plot is a really good one, demonstrating Krabs' cheapskate nature, Squidward's self-centered behavior, and SpongeBob's good heart. It gets a 8 out of 10. Animation-wise, the mattress store, Squidward mauling, and the Krabs barking at the worm scenes were pretty great, but nothing too special. I think 7 out of 10 is reasonable. And some scenes like those at the hospital were relatively bare bones, to be honest, but it is what it is. As for unique characteristics, it gets 7 out of 10. This episode was a great combination of vastly different and sometimes opposing views. Think about SpongeBob versus Squidward and intentions, but ultimately we did get a good ending, and that's what I like, a good ending. Overall, this episode gets a 22 out of 30, and hopefully Krabs learned his lesson and secured his wealth in a more reasonable way. Krabs vs. Plankton is a really hyped up episode, but I think it does deserve the attention it gets given that it fuses the application of a legal system for dispute resolution with classic themes of the series, that being the Krabs-Plankton rivalry, and perhaps more significantly, Plankton trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula. Also, it can't be a coincidence that the episode literally begins with Plankton awaking on a lumpy looking mattress, could it? I mean, we just had the Lost Mattress as the previous episode after all. Anyways, Plankton successfully enters the Krusty Krab, but he slips in a puddle of water created by SpongeBob, who is mopping the floor. We then have these big mouth fish suggesting that Plankton should sue Mr. Krabs for not having a wet floor sign and for his subsequent pain and suffering, which Plankton, of course, then begins putting on a dramatic performance to prove his point. We have Richard A. Bottom Feeder, attorney at law, suddenly showing up offering to be Krabs' defense lawyer and proposing that they should countersue Plankton. Of course, Mr. Krabs goes ka-ching in a pretty hilarious way with his gold bar eye stalks. Things go awry once the lawyer also slips and falls thanks to a puddle of water on the ground once again created by SpongeBob, demonstrating how much of a liability he is. And unfortunately, the lawyer has no choice but to get SpongeBob to do his job on his behalf, handling SpongeBob his briefcase without providing the associated combination. How SpongeBob can play the role of the lawyer without a license doesn't make much sense, but we must move on. The hearing proceeds in a really silly manner, with Plankton continuing his act and presenting a sob story featuring his gram in order to sway the court and the jury. And meanwhile, Mr. Krabs is horrified to see SpongeBob lawyer pants standing in, and even more horrified to hear incriminating testimony presented by Squidward, who he initially thought was a trusted and loyal employee. Why Krabs would think that is not really made clear in this episode. SpongeBob, meanwhile, is frantically trying to open the briefcase, and it does snap open once SpongeBob slams his fist on the briefcase while he encourages Mr. Krabs that the case will be won by what was in his heart and not what was in the dumb old case. Remember that, because immediately later, well, that's some good advice. It turns out that the case was going to be won exactly by what was in that dumb old case, a Krabby Patty. SpongeBob calls Plankton to the witness stand and presents the alluring Krabby Patty, asking Plankton of his intentions regarding why he entered into the Krusty Krab that day. I was really surprised to see how Plankton couldn't control himself for long and revealed the truth that he was really just after the formula almost immediately. So he could have put on the act of being the weakling suffering at the foot of Krabs for the entire episode, but not hold on through the entire hearing. Doesn't make much sense, but hey, the writers needed a good conclusion. So the jury found Krabs not guilty, but really cheap. SpongeBob presented Krabs with a present, a wet floor sign he made himself, demonstrating SpongeBob's positive, caring, and kind-hearted attitude once again, just like we saw in the Lost Mattress. The plot deserves a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed the various twists and turns, from Krabs' lawyer getting injured to SpongeBob frantically trying to pry the briefcase open, and finally, the light bulb moment regarding the Krabby Patty. Animation gets a 8 out of 10. The scenes of Plankton exaggerating his injuries were really well done and extremely expressive, and I also like Krabs' gold bars and SpongeBob using the cap of the light bulb to turn himself into a bomb capable of breaking the briefcase apart, although that kind of failed. Finally, Unique Characteristics gets a 9 out of 10. The episode was great at getting out the message that the truth will prevail at the end of the day, no matter how much adversity you might have to traverse to get there. It was cool to see what the Bikini Bottom legal system is like, and once again, we also had a really positive message in that although SpongeBob was initially viewed as a liability, given that he technically was the cause of the falls, SpongeBob's character and wits combined could still be a force to be reckoned with. This episode gets a 26 out of 30, so that was The Lost Mattress and Krabs vs. Plankton. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment in the box below what you thought about these two episodes. Make sure to subscribe, like, favorite, comment, etc. Keep it right here on Ultimate SpongeBob 101, and I'll see you guys in the next SpongeBob video. Bye!